Imagine your brain as a premium high-performance computer processor. You close every visible application, shut down your intensive creative software, and put the device into what you assume is a state of deep rest. Yet, beneath the outer casing, the main silicon core is still running at maximum capacity, burning through battery power, generating immense heat, and wearing down the hardware. This is not a poetic metaphor. This is the exact metabolic reality of a human brain suffering from chronic, unexplained mental fatigue. You sleep for 8 hours, cut back on physical labor, and consume stimulants, yet the moment you sit down to focus, your prefrontal cortex feels completely hollowed out. You aren't lazy. Your cellular mitochondria aren't failing. Instead, you are suffering from an invisible neurological leak that is actively consuming up to 80% of your daily cerebral energy on a massive background task you don't even know is running. Every single minute you spend trying to relax is being hijacked by an internal energy siphon. To fix this, we have to look directly at a hidden neural highway known as the default mode network. To understand why this internal leak is so devastating, we must look at the strict biological economics of human survival. In cognitive neurobiology, your brain represents a mere 2% of your total body weight. Yet, under normal conditions, it ruthlessly consumes more than 20% of your body's entire daily metabolic energy budget. For decades, traditional science assumed that when you sit quietly or rest, your brain's energy consumption drops to a minimal baseline. They believed the system went into a power-saving mode to preserve resources. They were entirely wrong. Modern neuroimaging technology has revealed that when you stop actively working, your internal energy consumption barely drops by a single %. The metabolic power is simply redirected somewhere else. Your brain is an organ that never truly idles. It is constantly burning glucose and oxygen at a ferocious rate, meaning that any inefficiency in how that energy is distributed will rapidly bankrupt your entire physical and mental energy reserves, leaving you exhausted without a clear physical cause. When you sit quietly in a dark room doing absolutely nothing, a massive, interconnected web of deep brain regions instantly fires into synchronized action. In cognitive neuroscience, this web is known as the default mode network, or the DMN. Discovered accidentally via functional magnetic resonance imaging scans, this network links your medial prefrontal cortex with your posterior cingulate cortex, the precuneus, and the inferior parietal lobule. It creates a massive, high-resource neural highway that takes over the exact millisecond you stop interacting with the physical world around you. It is the brain's automated default state, an intricate network that stays dormant when you are focused on an external task but roars to life the moment your attention slips. This network consumes more energy than almost any other system in the human body, acting as a massive background operating system that controls your subconscious mind. The default mode network's biological purpose is completely centered around the concept of the self. It is the physical engine of your ego and your personal identity. It handles your autobiographical memory, self-reflection, social prediction, and mental time travel. It allows you to look back at past events to learn from them, and project yourself into hypothetical futures to plan for survival threats. Under healthy conditions, this network operates like a brilliant administrative assistant, organizing your memories, updating your self-narrative, and mapping out social dynamics while you rest. But under modern environmental stress, this assistant turns into a destructive tyrant. It stops serving your survival and begins dominating your consciousness, transforming your quiet moments into a battlefield of internal noise. When you experience chronic psychological stress, systemic low-grade inflammation, or metabolic dysfunction, the default mode network gets stuck with the accelerator flawed. It enters a state of dangerous, permanent hyperactivation. Instead of resting, the network begins firing erratically, creating an aggressive runaway loop of neurotoxic glutamate production across your synapses. This excess glutamate overstimulates your neural pathways, causing severe cellular distress and burning massive amounts of adenosine triphosphate, or ATP, which is your body's fundamental currency of cellular energy. The cells of your brain are quite literally burning themselves out from the inside, consuming fuel at an unsustainable rate just to maintain a state of useless, toxic hypervigilance that serves no practical purpose. While you are trying to relax, a hyperactive default mode network is forcing your brain to run continuous, heavy background simulations. It endlessly replays old social friction, dissects past mistakes, and calculates thousands of imaginary future micro-threats that will never actually occur. This is a high-resource software package running silently behind your conscious awareness. It acts exactly like malware on a smartphone, quietly draining the battery from inside your pocket while the screen is completely dark. You think you are resting, but your brain is actually fighting battles that do not exist, wasting its precious evolutionary resources on a loop of endless anxiety. When the default mode network leaks energy at this hyperactive rate, the physical structural consequences are immediate. Because your brain has a strict limit on its daily metabolic resources, it must prioritize survival simulations over active productivity. To feed the roaring fire in the DMN, the brain actively redirects blood flow, oxygen, and glucose away from your lateral prefrontal cortex. This is the exact brain region responsible for working memory, logic, emotional regulation, and deep focus. You are quite literally starving your executive mind to feed an internal ghost, leaving your thinking brain completely depleted of fuel. This metabolic redirection is the hidden biological mechanism behind severe brain fog. Your working memory caches are completely wiped, making it difficult to retain simple information. Your attention span fractures into tiny pieces, making long-form reading or deep work feel physically painful. You aren't experiencing an intellectual failure, you are experiencing a localized energy shortage. Your lateral prefrontal cortex doesn't have the fuel required to create stable neural connections, forcing your thoughts to feel sluggish, detached, and heavy, as if you are trying to think through water. The damage doesn't stop within the skull. Because the hyperactive DMN is constantly simulating worst-case scenarios, it repeatedly sends direct alarm signals down to your amygdala, the brain's primary threat detector. The amygdala interprets these internal simulations as real, physical dangers happening right now. It activates your sympathetic nervous system, causing a continuous, low-grade cortisol bleed from your adrenal glands into your bloodstream. Your body is thrust into a chronic survival response, leaving you with a tight chest, shallow breathing, and a subtle, persistent sense of dread that never truly goes away. This constant survival state completely disrupts your neurochemical balance, leading directly to deep dopamine burnout. When your nervous system is permanently stuck defending itself against imaginary threats, it suppresses your natural reward pathways to save energy. Your baseline dopamine levels plummet, leading to absolute anhedonia, where nothing feels rewarding, exciting, or motivating. You experience a heavy, lead-like fatigue throughout your entire muscular system. You are locked in an undiagnosed state of deep structural exhaustion, trying to solve a complex metabolic crisis with simple willpower. To plug this invisible leak, you cannot rely on traditional passive rest. Sitting on a couch, lying in bed, or scrolling through your phone does not deactivate the default mode network. In fact, passive screen time actively excites the DMN further, increasing the energetic drain while keeping your brain trapped in a state of high-stress comparison loops. To truly stop the leak, you must use an active clinical protocol designed to physically shift your neural traffic away from the DMN. This protocol centers around cognitive externalization. First, you must force the background simulations to close by dumping the visual data. The moment you feel heavy cognitive fatigue, Take a physical piece of paper and write down every single open loop, anxiety, and uncompleted task in your mind. This structural dump signals to your medial prefrontal cortex that the data is safely archived, allowing the DMN simulation to close. Second, engage in a high-sensory active focus task for exactly 5 minutes, such as intense breathwork or deep physical stretching. Forcing your brain to process real-time external sensory input activates your task-positive network, physically turning off the default mode network, cooling your neural circuits, and instantly reclaiming your precious metabolic energy.